Welcome to Thriver TV, the place to break free from narcissistic abuse with quantum tools and understandings. Is there anything more painful than being discarded? I seriously don't think there is. And narcissists do it in a way that rips your heart and your soul to pieces. And when I tap into my times of being discarded, the message my inner being received was, you're worthless. You're not worth loving, there's no use for you, and even worse, you are not wanted. And like many of us, my trauma at these times was indescribable because I used to have incredibly deep abandonment programs. And it's such a common thing for many of us in this community. And my heart goes out to you in spades if you're presently reeling in agony as a result of being discarded. Okay, so I want to do a little social thriver experiment today. So what I want you to do right now is tap into the trauma you feel from your last narcissistic discard. So whether it be emotional or literal. And what I want you to do is scroll down and write it in the comments below. So just tap into it. How did that feel for you? And then at the end of the video, I want you to go back to your comment and you're going to write how you feel now. So we're going to be able to see in real time over the next 20 minutes what shifts in your body for you, because this is transformational today. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few seconds of think time to just write your comment now. Write it in the comments. Just one or two things of how it felt for you when you were discarded. Okay, all right. So it truly is so impactful being discarded that we may feel like a small child deserted by our love source, meaning that we're alone and we're defenseless and we're so emptied out that we feel like we just can't go on and survive. And absolutely, we wonder how we're ever going to feel valuable and happy again. And of course, it's heartbreaking enough when we've been broken up with by a normal person who, if they are human, doesn't want to hurt us, and they're going to break up with us in a way that tries to make it as easy and as painless for us to handle as possible. So, you know, somebody like that might say something like, you know, you're a really great person and I do wish for the best. I wish the best for you. You deserve to be happy. However, being discarded when we're in narcissistic relationships goes nothing like that at all, because narcissists do not like separating from people who are going to go on and have happy, healthy lives without them. Their ego insanity, which is all about separation, limited resources, and me versus you, means that they can only win if somebody else has lost. And if you've been connected in a close relationship with them, whether it be an intimate partner one or family of origin, that dynamic, or a work role or a friendship role, this means that the narcissist is going to hit you at your lowest spot, which is always your deepest susceptibility, to strip you of your confidence and mental, emotional and physical health, as well as all belief in yourself, to leave you convulsing in the gutter as they prance away, often with your goodies, the people and things closest to your heart, as well as your networks and resources. Narcissists are calculating and they are filled with anger, hatred, revenge. And as far as they're concerned, you are the person who did not give them what they wanted from you. And as such, you deserve to be punished, which means being taught a lesson. So I just want to address this right now. What is really going on with that? Because I know so many of you gave the ribs out of your body to try to make the narcissist happy. Why were you never able to succeed? And the reason is because the narcissist has a very serious issue going on within their neuron pathways that they are so split and fractured from their true self that's been disowned, and their inner programs are so corrupted by their false self that they're full of self-loathing, that the narcissist has to disown these fractured parts, project them onto the people closest, and then try to destroy that person. And unconsciously, this is the narcissist trying to defeat and destroy their own damaged, deranged parts. In layman terms, it means that the people who judge and attack and criticize the most are deeply unhappy with their own inner being. And that is the narcissist on steroids. And it's why he or she is never happy and is always going to discard you emotionally, verbally, and oftentimes, eventually, physically. Now, here is the terrible truth about this. The narcissist usually discards you when there is nothing left to gain from you, meaning when they've emptied you out all the way to absolute rock bottom and nothingness. Or when you become too demanding and needy and aren't available anymore to mind for their own gain. Or when a better, fresher source of narcissistic supply, which means attention, accolades, resources, contacts, and or sex, has come along and the narcissist is still hanging on to you on the side to drain the last remaining bits out of you at the same time. So either way, you are beyond traumatized. You're either emptied out and so sick and damaged that you have no idea how you're going to continue, or you're still going through the terrible throes of being rescued periodically with supposed love and attention by the very person who's destroying you, and then you're turfed aside like yesterday's garbage at intervals in between. Either way, words can't even describe the effects of this. And I hope I'm describing it accurately to you, and please know I've lived it, I understand. I also understand deeply how much self-respect we lose for ourselves when we are literally rolled into an infantile ball, pleading and begging to have a scrap of love from these people because we feel like we're going to die without it. I've been there, and I know a lot of you have. So please know, it is like being a drug addict trying to sniff some crack up off a dirty carpet. And we hate this broken, no self-respect version of ourselves. We can't believe what we've become when it gets that bad. So how do we find closure from this? How do we ever get free of the obsessional thought loop about the utter cruelty, contempt and trauma that we underwent, and how our health, life force, welfare, trust, humanity and resources were raped in the process? I'm going to level with you. Contemporarily, I don't believe we can. The bottom line is I couldn't. Maybe people like Nelson Mandela, you know, we all know about his story. He let go and forgave. He let go of the atrocities that have happened to him. And he rebuilt his life by the pure power of his beliefs and convictions. And all power to him. He was a spectacular human being, and that's why he's world renowned. But I couldn't just cognitively get closure from this. And I think this is very, very normal after being sucked dry and tossed aside as an empty corpse. It's something that virtually every human doesn't recover from. It's really, really big. And when we go onto boards and groups that are suffering narcissistic abuse, we can see that many people commonly never recover from that. Most definitely, they've lost money, property, connections, and health. But the worst of it is they're now poisoned on the inside in regard to humanity, humanness, because of what happened. They danced with what, as humans, we call evil, and it scarred them for life. So that was my story, and it was all of our stories, really. But I promise you, it is not my story now. Today and for some years now, I've had no obsessional loops, no unanswered questions, no regrets, which means that I've got closure. How did I get this? Did the narcissists, 2 of them, in my life ever apologize? Did the narcissists in my life ever repay the money and property they ripped away from me? Did the narcissists ever go around to all the people and the organisations they smeared me to and fess up to their lies? No, they didn't. None of those things ever happened. Have these narcissists been held accountable or been imprisoned or been brought to justice? The truth is I actually don't know, and I actually don't care. Because as far as I'm concerned, they could win Powerball and become multimillionaires or fall off the face of the earth for all I care. I have complete closure, and my closure has got nothing to do with them. Rather, it has absolutely everything to do with me. And additionally, I believe whatever unfolds, no matter what it is for them, is all in perfect and divine order. Because the bottom line is this: their lives have nothing to do with me. What does have everything to do with me is my life, my unfolding, and my creation of my inner being and subsequent outer life, period. I don't even think about these people ever anymore unless I discuss them with someone. Because truly that way of life and the patterns I used to be entrenched in are not my reality anymore. I had a gentleman really recently ask me this in the community. This is what he said. He's like, Melanie, surely it still hurts. Tell me the truth. You can't possibly not have the pain of what happened to you. How can that not still be going on within you? And my answer to him was this: I don't, honestly. And the reason I don't is because I worked my butt off to release every trauma and painful belief and feeling from my inner being, up, out, and gone. Because there is no way, once I knew how to do this, that I would leave them in there. For what? And it may seem fanciful, ludicrous, and even like a total fluke to have complete closure after what we go through. My story is your story. We're all in this together, because like so many of us, I lost everything I'd worked towards for 40 years, as well as what I believe was my dream life, who I thought was my true love. And I suffered the total destruction of my career, reputation, friends, family, health, resources. And I experienced supposed insurmountable debt with medically diagnosed no way to ever rebuild health, whilst he waltzed off with what had been mine. And I know there are people like you know, who are going through this. You could easily be going through this stuff, or even worse. So how on earth is closure possible after going through that? How did I reach closure? And I'll tell you flat out this truth: it was not the contemporary way. I couldn't think myself into closure. If I'd have stayed in my head, I know I'd be dead right now from the trauma inside me that was eating me alive, or I'd be in an institution heavily medicated, praying and obsessing every day about him finally paying for what he did to me. That would have been narc number 1. I wouldn't have even been out in the real world to experience number 2. Okay, because that is the warped human view that I had on needing closure previously. I can't have closure until he's brought to justice. That's what I used to believe. Now I know that is all a big fat lie that we've been fed. This is the answer, and it's only 3 simple words: release your trauma. That is the complete answer. Get the trauma out of your inner being, out of your cellular body, because your subconscious is your body. And the trauma that is causing you to hurt continuously and is clogging you up with everything that is blocking you coming back and flowing into well-being has to go. Because if it doesn't, you are clogged up, stopping well-being in all areas of your life. The health, love, prosperity, that are natural states without our trauma, regardless of what our life has been to date. It's not until we start living this that we know it to be true. The only reason I started facing and releasing the trauma out of me that I was carrying was because I was brought to my knees by narcissistic abuse with nowhere else to go. Before then, I thought my life was based on spiritual and personal development and knowledge, what course I took, what book I read, what seminar I went to. And despite all the knowledge I was gaining through these avenues, as well as the copious amounts of therapy that I was continuously having, I had no idea that all I was doing was putting ice cream on top of poop, trying to get the good to overtake the bad, whilst my internal garage held a rusty wreck taking up all of the space. That was the trauma. With no room to drive my brand new shiny car in there. So what this meant was my life was a roller coaster, having trauma trapped inside, effectively managing it at times, then having it resurface as anxiety, depression, and insecurities. It was always doing push-ups in the background, waiting for a gap, and then it would come through. And then again, I'd have to work my butt off to soothe it, but it was always there. And my life was like sinking in quicksand, getting out and then falling back in, and it was beyond exhausting. And the more trauma I accumulated throughout my life, which was the trauma inside meeting me from the outside, so within, so without, so it was just gaining, you know, it was like a rolling stone gathering moss. And this is even before narcissistic abuse. So what would happen then, I'd have to work harder to fight, to stop being engulfed by that quicksand. And my entire life became personal development as a total necessity, hours a day to try to be sane. And then when narcissistic abuse came along, coupled with the brutal discards, leaving me lifeless and virtually dead, it was game over. There was no more ability to soothe internal trauma or trying to merely manage it. None of that was going to work anymore. There was no more kicking the can down the road, which is what most of us have been doing, and we didn't realize we were doing it. Rather, it was time to release the trauma, get rid of it, live free from it, or don't live at all. That's what I was faced with. And I know a lot of us get to that point. And thank God I chose to release my trauma. And after starting that journey of making it all about finding and releasing my trauma, I made it have nothing to do with the narcissist at all. In fact, this was my mantra. This has nothing to do with you. This is now all about healing me. And from doing that, complete and utter closure came. Why? Because I was released from being an anxious, traumatized, powerless, depressed, PTSD-ridden being into an expanded, healthy, joyous, prosperous one. And please know, in no way am I judging or blaming my former self. I'm just calling the truth of how it was. And I bless this previous version of me because she brought me to my knees via the external relationship with a narcissist to finally find and release my internal blocks that were not allowing me to live as my true self. And I know 100% without the narcissistic experience, this would never have been possible. I would have stayed asleep in quicksand trying to manage the traumas and false beliefs that I'd had ever since I was born. And then it accumulated more of during my life. Was I happy before narcissistic abuse? No. Was I frantically trying to manage trauma I'd carried epigenetically from my ancestors and childhood that I thought was my normal? Yes, my beliefs used to be, life's tough, it's a struggle. You know, it's hard work. Those were my beliefs, and it was. Was I continually experiencing painful and disappointing relationship patterns with my own inner being and in all areas of my life with others? Yes. Was I having varied degrees of success and fulfillment, such as getting it all and then suffering struggles and disappointments again? Yes. Was my life actually pretty much a roller coaster with me having to get up, be strong and get on with it over and over again? Yes. Immediately after narcissistic abuse, did I even recognize this? That my life hadn't been great before him? No way. After narcissistic abuse, I vowed and declared that he came along into my together, happy, successful life, smashed it to pieces, and took all that I had. It wasn't until healing, releasing my traumas, and getting to this place of nirvana, meaning living life without trauma, with life force, well-being, and abundance and joy flowing through me, which is my natural state, that I realized how far away from this my previous life, even before narcissistic abuse, was. And how so many of us, while surviving our wounds and simply living our life, haven't awakened yet to our true power and how amazing life really is meant to be for all of us. Does my life and the lives of thousands of thrivers in this community who have done the inner work with NARP and got to the other side, is that any resemblance to our old way of life now? Does it bear resemblance? And I know so many of you report that all the time. I'm the happiest I've ever been. Why is that? Why are our lives different now to what they were even before narcissistic abuse? Because of this, we no longer live our lives trying to manage and survive our internal traumas. Instead, we now purposefully go to them and we release them out of ourselves. These are the exact traumas in our bodies. This is the thing. These were the traumas in our bodies that narcissists met us with and smashed so hard that they were brought up to the surface. The unconscious became conscious, finally for us to face them and release them in order to save our life. And this is how we receive the ultimate closure, taking that life, that transformational evolution process, taking it with both of your hands to set yourself free. Because when you do that, you will realize that your greatest disasters, persecutors, haters, and enemies divinely and perfectly played the role in your greatest liberation. And then we have the perfect closure brought about by grist and grace. So if you are at the point where enough is enough of this pain of not having closure, you know, I really want you to hold my hand and start doing it the quantum way, the way that you can heal for real, which is Thriver Recovery, because it's time. And within my free resources, there is just so much to help you. There's 16 days of a free course, which is Healing All For You, as well as a 3-hour workshop, which takes you through a quantum freedom healing, where you release the trauma directly out of your cells and start feeling what it is to have instant relief. So all you've got to do to access that is click the link at the top right of the video. And also too, don't forget now, what I'd really like you to do, remember to do that, but what I want you to do now on this video in your comments, I want you to tune in, shut your eyes and tune in through your body to how you feel now. How do you feel now? Think about your last discard. How do you feel now? And I want you to write about it. And see if there's a difference, see if there's a shift. because you could well be on your way to heal. Okay, and once we start shifting, we're moving towards our true self. So it's time to heal. It's time to change this. It's time to get quantum closure, which is real closure. So until next time, keep smiling, keep healing, and keep thriving, because there's nothing else to do. Lots of love. Bye-bye.